Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being with us on Political Brew. This week, we're joined by former Republican State Senator Phil Harriman and attorney and radio talk host, Democrat Ken Altshuler. Gentlemen, good to see you this morning.
Great to be here. Hi, how are you, Phil?
Good to see you, Pat. Hi, Ken.
Busy times from Washington to Augusta. Let's dive into it. Governor Mills this past week unveiled a $1.13 billion Maine jobs and recovery plan using federal money. It's going to address economic recovery from the pandemic, as well as boosting future growth and revitalizing infrastructure. The devil will be in the details. Ken, what do you think of the plan as outlined? Certainly sounds like it could be good politics for Janet Mills next year.
Well, I love it. I'm an unabashed fan of Janet Mills these days and this plan. It focuses on small businesses. It focuses on employment. It focuses in on a future expansion of broadband internet. It touches all the important components. Yes, is there a few things about climate change and about wind power and things like that? Of course. However, the main bulk of what she's proposing is all economically focused, which is what Republicans should like to hear. And I think she's doing a great job. I think this was a great proposal. Devil's in the details, but I like her plan.
Phil, how are Republicans reacting to this, and do they see things they like?
Well, I'm sure there are things in there that everyone will point to and says, yeah, that makes sense. The politics of it, as you alluded to, are great for the governor. She's going to be able to deploy all this money out of Washington that's not going to be accounted for years to come in terms of paying it back. So it's great politics. I'm sure there are things in there that everyone would agree is great for our infrastructure. But to me, this is way over the top additional spending over the COVID relief dollars that have already been appropriated. This is, we're going on a spending spree with borrowed money.
Now, Maine has to have a supplemental budget, Phil, and Republicans in the legislature have outlined their priorities for that, including increasing municipal revenue sharing from 3.75% to 5%, and that's not always a Republican priority. How much input are Republicans going to get in this supplemental budget?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, Pat, because we know from the annual budget, the biannual budget that was passed on a majority vote really frustrated the Republicans who were left out of that process. It's going to be interesting to see if the Democrats will continue as they did in the first budget and ignore Republicans. I think the Republican effort to bring revenue sharing down to the municipalities is probably an effort to bring the dollars closer to the people. And back in my time in the Senate, revenue sharing was at 5%.
Well, as you know, to the victor goes the spoils, and the Democrats are in power. They have the say. However, if the Republicans truly do things such as increasing revenue sharing, which has not traditionally been a Republican perspective, at least recently, then they're going to be heard and they're going to be brought into the fold. I think it's good strategy on their part, because it's not something the Republicans have really embraced in the past several years.
Maine is revisiting the decision not to vet vanity license plate requests for vulgarities. Bills being considered would reestablish a review process and allow the Secretary of State to reject vulgar license plates and allow the recall of offensive plates. And Secretary of State Bellows is on board with this. Ken, what do you make of it?
Well, let me point out that when Shannon was the head of the Maine Civil Liberties Union, she did not take the same position. She actually, a lot of the lawsuits and a lot of the arguments were to allow vanity plates however people wanted. I am a strong supporter of the First Amendment. I do not believe there should be very many limits on it. When you can put a bumper sticker right next to a license plate, what's the use of censoring the license plate? And I know she says, well, we're sanctioning it by issuing the license plates. Well, you shouldn't be in the business of having to sanction anything. Issue the license plates. If I want to put something profane on my license plate, I have the right to do it. That may not be very sensible on my part, but I believe in free speech. I don't think this is a good idea. I think let whatever you want to put on it go.
You know, I think this just spells out another example of why the leaders of our government need to be mindful of our constitutional rights, as Ken has pointed out. If it's about the ability to put letters in sequence that creates what some may say is offensive, the Secretary of State could decide to just issue license plates with numbers on it. And the other part of it I think is important is that Shannon Bellows is now the Secretary of State. How she decides if this bill passes, what's vulgar and what isn't, also circles right back to Ken's point. Government shouldn't be in the business of telling people how to address their free speech rights.
This past week, Senator Collins was censured by Piscataquis County Republican Party over her vote to convict former President Trump in his second impeachment trial. And in Washington, House Republicans have taken on conservative Representative Liz Cheney because of her refusal to buy into the unfounded argument that the presidential election was stolen. Phil, what does this tell us about the Republican Party in 2021?
Well, I actually kind of look at this as a positive. I think it's good. It's healthy for Republicans to have these debates. This caucus that was formed in Piscataquis County voiced their opinion. They're not starting a new party. They're not leaving the Republican Party. They're just using their rights to express their opinions. I think that's healthy. As it relates to Liz Cheney in Washington, she's supposed to represent her caucus. And if her caucus is saying, hey, you're not reflecting our views, then that's why this decision to perhaps recall her position is unfolding. It's going to be very interesting to see, but I think the conversation is a healthy one.
I could not disagree with you more, Phil, on this issue. I think it's absolutely outrageous. Susan Collins, you guys said what a great senator she was because she always voted her conscience. And when she voted to acquit Donald Trump on the first impeachment, everybody applauded. Then she did the right thing and voted to impeach him on his clear inciting a riot on January 6th. All of a sudden, she's a rhino or not even a Republican anymore. And Liz Cheney, this is outrageous. Donald Trump is not the president. Why the Republicans are deciding to throw their lot behind, frankly, a madman. And instead of supporting what I think is a very honest, reputable Republican, she's going to be voted out of Congress in Wyoming. This is what the Republican Party has chosen to do, to hitch their wagon to the ex-president who lost the election in 2020. It's nothing but fear-based, and I think it's really shameful for the Republican Party.
The legislature's State and Local Government Committee has given bipartisan support to a bill to have Maine voters choose constitutional officers, including the Secretary of State, the Attorney General, and the Treasurer. Backers say the current system of having lawmakers choose them, as we've done for so long, rewards Augusta insiders. Phil, would we be better off with direct election of those offices?
No, but I would be in favor of a different approach. I think the notion that we're going to have the state's top attorney, chief financial officer, secretary of our records, the auditor, go out and raise money and campaign for a partisan office doesn't make sense to me. What I would be in favor of is I think the governor, whoever he or she is, should have the opportunity to surround herself or himself with the lawyer and the CFO, et cetera, nominate them, have them confirmed by the Senate, and use that as our process.
Well, I have a hybrid approach to it. I hate to agree with Paul LePage, although sometimes I do. I do not believe the legislature should be voting on those offices. I just don't. I think that either the governor appoints or the people vote for it. I think the attorney general appointment should be an appointment by the judge. Although it is a little different than that attorney general being the governor's lawyer, that attorney general does have to follow the policy of the governor to a certain extent. Kevin Mills and Paul LePage's conflict was really not good, was not healthy. And so I think the governor should appoint the attorney general. Secretary of State is more like a lieutenant general, a governor in other states. I don't have any problem with the treasurer and the auditor being elected by the people. I think you should be able to go out there and say to the people, this is why I should be your treasurer. Let the people vote. I believe in democracy, so I'm okay with that. Let the attorney general be appointed by the governor.
Big topic in Washington this session has been the District of Columbia and whether it should become a state. Senator Susan Collins says it should not be a state, but should rather become part of Maryland, much as part of the district apparently became part of Virginia many years ago. Republicans generally dislike the idea of D.C. statehood, assuming it would add 2 surefire Democratic Senate seats. But Ken, is this a little like asking Maine to go back to being part of Massachusetts?
Of course, D.C. should not be part of Maryland. Listen, the bottom line, Pat, is this. Any state we can add that can get us 2 more Democratic senators, I'm signing on for. And I have no trouble saying that. It's the same thing about the Supreme Court stacking. You know, we're in power now. Do whatever you can to get more Democratic senators so we can stay in power. That's what politics is all about. I'd like to see Puerto Rico be a state. I'd like D.C. to be a state. If Maine was to split in 2 states, that would balance it out a little bit, but I'm okay with more states, more Democratic senators.
And that's the reason why I see it very differently. Our seat of government shouldn't be beholden to a partisan policy influence. We need to have our seat of government in a neutral zone where they're not influenced by the likes of the approach to Ken getting control of the Supreme Court and the Congress. I just see that it's worked for 150 something years. Why should we change it now?
All right. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says this week he's 100% focused on stopping the Biden administration. It's a familiar message from him. What does it tell us? And he even dragged Susan Collins into the mix, saying, quote, "What we have in the United States Senate is total unity from Susan Collins to Ted Cruz in opposition to what the new Biden administration is trying to do to this country." Phil, that must have delighted Senator Collins to be painted into that corner.
I'm sure she was not happy to be in that soundbite and headline. But I think you could also add the same thing to Chuck Schumer and the role that Democrats played when Trump was president. The minority party, that is their job, to challenge and debate and force these conversations so that the majority doesn't tyrannize the minority.
But that doesn't sound like a negotiation strategy. It sounds like obstruction, right, Ken?
Well, of course it's obstruction. And Phil, this is the problem with your dream of a pure Senate that isn't political at all. Mitch McConnell stopped a vote on a legally, lawfully nominated Supreme Court nominee by Barack Obama using politics. And then when Donald Trump was in office, we had a new Republican nominee that got ushered through the Senate quickly. It is politics. And that's why Mitch McConnell is an obstructionist. One of those days of Newt Gingrich and Bill Clinton, where they were polar opposites, but they worked together, those are long gone. Mitch McConnell should be ashamed of himself. He is an obstructionist. He'll do whatever he can to derail it. And that's why the Democrats have to take advantage of having a 50-vote tie with the vice president able to break it. Do whatever you can now. You won't have a chance in the future.
All right, let's wrap up with our winners and losers in politics this week. Phil, we'll start with you.
Thanks, Pat. Good to see you, Ken. My loser of the week this week is the proposal by President Biden to borrow these massive amounts of dollars and consider it infrastructure improvement. We could really laser target these dollars instead. It seems like a spending spree on borrowed money. My winner this week is Maine's hospitality industry, the innkeepers and restaurateurs who have endured, probably the most difficult time in their career. It looks as though the tourism season in Maine is going to be bright, and thanks to the associations, Maine Tourism Association and others, for keeping these people together. And hopefully they're going to have a great rebound in the months ahead.
And Ken.
My win of the week is Liz Cheney. Here is a Republican who stands on principle, who says, stop the lie. The election was fair. There is no fraud. And she stands up for it in the face of losing her leadership position. And she will not be reelected in Wyoming. And that is a wonderful principle, and I applaud her. The losers, the Republicans, who continue to perpetuate the lie of a false, fraudulent election and follow, frankly, a madman who is not even the president anymore. They hitched their wagon to Donald Trump. I think they're going to be sorry they did it in 2024, and the Republicans are the losers of the week.
All right, Ken Altshuler, Phil Harriman, thanks for being with us on this Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there.
Right.
And we'll see you next time. New Center Maine is back after this.